Welcome back, everybody, to a post-week 11 edition of the StricklyNFL podcast. I have a panel with me today. If you guys are not watching on YouTube and you're watching on some other form, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, you can't see this, but I will be introducing them shortly. We have Luca and Tyrese on here today. And by the title of this podcast, you'll know why they are on here. But I'll just go ahead and say it anyway. Today, we are holding Joe Schoen, and not only Joe Schoen, but also Brian Daboll's feet to the fire. Off the heels of Rob Saleh and Joe Douglas being thrown overboard over there on the other locker room in MetLife Stadium, we are going to go ahead and do a top-down analysis of every single move, decision, whatever you want to call it, and then, just break everything down head to toe. And add some more context to it. So before we get into Luca and Tyrese, I'm going to kick it to my co-host Des and ask him how he's feeling.
I've had to watch this fuck 6 years of my life. He's gone. In my mind, he's dead. Joe Schoen put the bullet in the back of his fucking head. He's gone. I don't think you understand the sudden joy I feel. I don't give a fuck if that stupid fucking Italian is running quarterback. It could be fucking Drew Horsecock. I don't care. Fuck it. Tim Boyle's on the team now? Put him in there. As long as it's not that long-necked motherfucker. As long as I don't have to watch him play football anymore, I'm a happy man.
Yeah, that's definitely it feels liberating, man. Like this is like our Boston Tea Party of our generation.
Yeah, no, this is like I'm trying to think of a way to like I said, in my mind, Daniel Jones is dead. So yep. I don't know.
That's very nice. Yeah. Luca, and then I guess we go Tyrese after. How we feeling? How we feeling about the DJ benching and just everything right now?
Well, if you can tell by my title under my name, everything seems to be falling apart. Having technical issues today for the first time ever, which is why I'm not on camera. I hope my audio continues to sound okay. Yep. That's great. Comments from the players during the bye week, not exactly encouraging. But as Dez proclaimed with his intro, he's fucking gone. And that's really, it's given me a little bit of hopium, if you want to call it, for the future. QB1 to QB4 is a death sentence, obviously, for any player, any quarterback. I'm just excited to break it all down because earlier in the year on the shows, I've been very heavy on keeping Daboll and Schoen. And as we go through everything that both have done, specifically Schoen, my opinion's definitely changed as I've gone in detail. And we'll talk about it. And thanks for having me today.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime.
Tyrese, how about you?
It's good to be free. I had to watch this dude since I was in fucking my freshman year of college. And I'm 3 years out of college, and now I don't have to deal with this shit anymore. Like, this was pre-pandemic shit that we had to deal with. To put that into fucking perspective.
Daniel Jones is the pandemic, actually.
He started it.
And now we're fucking vaccinated.
Now we're vaccinated.
Oh, shit. We got vaxxed.
Oh, my God.
We did get vaxxed.
Don't tell Aaron Rodgers.
Don't tell RFK Jr.
He's next.
Don't tell RFK.
Don't tell him.
But yeah, like, aside from the back half of 2019 and 2022, watching this guy play quarterback when he's been healthy to play quarterback has been a fucking joke.
Yep.
So now that I don't have to watch him play quarterback, like, I'm not used to not watching him play quarterback when he's like healthy. Like, he's healthy and he's not playing quarterback. Usually when he's not playing, it's because he's like, he hurt his fucking neck or he tore his ACL or like some shit like that. And it's like, nope, he's just bad,
Pass.
He's bad at the sport of football.
and we're free, so I'm happy about it.
Yeah. Before we get any further into this podcast, for those watching on YouTube and whatnot, like I said before, Apple, Spotify, the full episode of this podcast will be behind the Strickland's Patreon on the $9 Patreon tier. And there's a bunch of other different tiers and perks, $3 tier, $6 tier, $9 tier for this one, and so on and so forth, where you get a ton of awesome stuff. Merch, you get a percentage off of the merch when we drop it. We get access to the Discord, which is fucking awesome. Me and Luca are in there all day, fucking chatting up whatever sport. Tyrese
Just fucking
talking
bullshitting,
basketball.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah, we gotta get you in there, man.
I'm in there. I don't touch Discord. I'm like afraid of the stigma that comes with Discord, so I refuse to open it.
You just go in, call your bosses onk and dip.
That's honestly all I've done the last 2 weeks. It's just I'll like join it, I'll like hop in to make sure like I'm not missing anything. See that one of Zach or Schwinn have said something and just reply, "Damn, unk to it." Like that's pretty much been it this week.
Yep. Yeah. And furthermore, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all online betting. Excuse me. From the latest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and ability to watch the games as they happen, with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, NHL to entertainment and political props, which make me want to kill myself. Head to BetOnline today to get in on all the action. With America's most trusted site for online wagering, BetOnline, the game starts here. Which, stick around to the end for our Spread 'em segment. We're going to talk all about BetOnline and some of the lines that we're liking this week. So you can stay tuned for that. But let's pick it up, with obviously the main event of this podcast. So I am just going to go top down and throw out some names to you guys first. We'll go into draft classes and all that after this. But I think a hallmark of a great or even just a good regime is being able to come in wherever you are and being able to identify talent, even if it's not your guy, and saying, all right, I think we should keep this guy and work on some stuff, to just throw a comparison out there. The Mets did that this year, where they kept some guys. They kept Mark Vientos, and, we won't get into fucking baseball, but you got to be able to identify talent, whether it's guys that you liked or guys that you didn't, but you got to make it work with, and X, Y, and Z. So guys who were here when Joe Schoen came by and he did not retain. Evan Ingram went on to have a Pro Bowl season. Will Hernandez, I believe he went on to have a Pro Bowl season as well in Arizona. Julius Peppers had a good run in New England before this year where he got arrested for some shit.
We had Julius Peppers?
Julius Peppers?
Julius Peppers, yeah, that's real nice. Jabril Peppers. Yeah, Jabril Peppers, sorry. I wish we had Julius Peppers. Jordan Love, who was here for a year with Joe Schoen. And
Jordan Love?
Jordan Love. Jesus, man.
Are you what?
Come on, Punk, get in the game.
What podcast am I hosting, bro? Julian Love. Julian Love went to Seattle after a year over here, where he played well also. Sterling Shepard ended up being cut because they thought he had no more juice left. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin go down in Tampa. He's able to not necessarily fill that void, but he's given them good snaps, good production in their absence. We had Ben Bredesen leave this offseason, go to Tampa, play a big-time role starting every single game over there. Ashawn Robinson, a little bit of a different situation because he played well here as well, and we got him into the comp pick formula. So a little different, but still somebody who you let walk out, and then you had to rely on DJ Davidson, among others. Then the two big ones, Xavier McKinney, who we've all missed dearly.
My sweet
Giants
prince.
this season.
My
Yep.
sweet prince.
Luca's, knight in shining armor.
I suck a lot of things to get Xavier McKinney back. I didn't exactly say what.
I'd
Said a
rather
lot
you
of
not.
things. Exactly. That's why.
Like a lollipop.
Yeah. Like I hate lollipops. I'd have a lot of lollipops
Yeah.
to get Xavier McKinney back.
What flavor?
Grape. Fuck grape.
Okay. And Saquon Barkley, who I'm not going to cry over it because I didn't really care about it in the first place. But that is somebody who he let walk. So you look through these things: Ingram, Hernandez, Peppers, Julian Love, Shep, Bredesen, Ashawn, X-Man, Saquon Barkley. At the time where these guys left, they were all starting caliber players the minute they went to their next team. And not only starting caliber players, but all players who contributed at a high, high level. What did we replace them with? I mean, we'll get into all of it, but not the best job of replacing them efficiently. So my first grade is just going to be on the in-house identification of talent upon arrival. And it seems like they did a fucking horrible job.
Yeah.
It's just, it's kind of tough, especially when it comes to Hernandez and Ben Bredesen, because of the terrorist known as Bobby Johnson, who, I mean, it's really not a coincidence that every lineman that has left the Giants pretty much while they had Bobby Johnson went on to get better, and every lineman on the Giants currently after Bobby Johnson left has looked better. So like when it comes to like Hernandez and Ben Bredesen, I can kind of understand it. Evan Ingram, the loss of him sucked. I know obviously a lot of Giants fans were, I guess you could say, like kind of happy that he left because of just the reputation he had of not being the most consistent pass catcher. And obviously he's not known as a blocker. I was kind of like, when it came to bringing him back, I was like, whatever. Like if they do, cool. But if not, like I'm not going to, shit my pants and cry. I don't know. And then there's like Julian Love and McKinney. I'm kind of tired of like letting good safeties walk and then being like, oh, if we draft someone, we don't have to worry about paying that guy. And like, yeah, we drafted Tyler Nubin and we got lucky with Jason Pinnock, but like, wouldn't it be nice to have two really good safeties right now?
Yeah. Probably. Probably would.
Yeah. Tyrese, what do you, I'm gonna let Tyrese go first. What do you think about this, Tyrese?
I mean, I think I wanted Love gone in the moment, but now like the fact that it's been like 2 years, losing him does kind of suck. I wanted to keep X. I understand why they let him go because like that contract was nuts for the Packers, and I think everybody thought it was nuts at the time. I feel like a lot of the talent that we let through the door, like I feel like the in-house opinion of them was like a lot lower among the fan base, and then when they left, it's like, okay, well, these guys could have been a lot better with like good coaching, which we didn't have, especially on the lines. So it kind of sucks, but like someone like Ashawn Robinson, like I would have liked us to keep. Granted, I understand like the Giants have been good with like D tackles, especially like Ashawn Robinson was replacement for BJ Hill. And then, like before that, BJ Hill was from. I'm blanking on his name, but like
class.
Yeah, like it just kind of has felt like the Giants know D tackle, and somehow, some way, they haven't figured out D tackle aside from my Lord and Savior Dexter Lawrence. So it's like that's what kind of sucks. It's like the Giants, like the areas where the Giants are usually like really good at, like D tackle, safety. They haven't been good at. So like Pinnock is okay. Nubin's growing. I like Nubin. Nubin's good. Drew Phillips is solid. It's just like you really wish like you had like the guys that like were in positions where like you were strong as that. I wish we had those guys, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's not even like we're not even just losing the talent and the players. We're losing the continuity within the system as well, right? And the chemistry with the rest of the defense. The offensive line pieces, I'm less annoyed about because Shane did an admirable job of rebuilding the O-line with the cap space this year and with some draft capital, basically just JMS, and then having Andrew Thomas already be a cornerstone is nice. But when you look at losing Julian Love for $13 million a year, that's not – we could have extended him at 10 during the bye week in 2022, just like Saquon. The McKinney contract, I don't think I would have paid him 17 just given where our cap was this past offseason and how many holes we had to fill. But that's not an absurd number for an all-pro safety. And if you look at some of the moves that happened in lieu of bringing these guys back, like one of the things I have in my notes today, which I'd like to get into further detail later, is what if we didn't make the Burns trade and didn't give him that enormous contract extension and use those picks as part of that trade? Would this team be filled with more talent? These are all the things that we have to evaluate when we're looking at Joe Schoen's time here, because his job coming in as the GM of a rebuilding team is to fill the roster with as much young, controllable talent as possible and make it a good spot for your rookie QB to play in. And to be quite honest, I don't think he's done nearly as good of a job as he had to.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I guess we can. Why not? Let's dive into Burns right now. And then we'll plan it as like we'll dive into Burns, and then I'll try to recalibrate things towards the drafts that they've had the last 3 years. So just because it's a hot topic, the Burns trade, I think it is very. It should be, at least I should say, it should be very acceptable to say this was a good move, and also it could be the wrong move at the same time. Now, I'm not in that camp. I think Brian Burns is a level of player that I will never ever say acquiring him is the wrong move, but I can see why people will say that. Not only was it, the money where Brian Burns quite literally makes the exact salary of Saquon and McKinney, so in a way you chose him over both of them. You also traded the second and the fifth round pick for him, so the fifth hasn't come to fruition yet, but the second round pick did. And I don't love saying, oh, well, they only picked this guy at this spot. So even if that guy sucks, then who cares? That's not how the NFL draft works, right? Like, it's not who cares if you traded this fourth round pick, because your team might like somebody who went 20 picks later and you could have had a shot at that guy, but you didn't because you traded the pick. So regardless of what Carolina ended up doing with that pick, and I forgot who they took. I don't really give a shit about them. It's just that's not that's not logic that should fly when you're the GM of a professional football team. So I do think that standpoint of saying the Burns trade was a bad move or not the right move is totally acceptable. And if people want to say you're probably better right now with Saquon and Tracy, and then Aziz and Kayvon on the edges with McKinney back there, I don't think you're totally correct, but I also don't think you're totally wrong. Obviously, there's no way for us to know that, but the domino factor here is you don't trade for Burns. Like we said, we bring back Saquon and X-Man. Maybe you don't draft Newbin. Now, all of a sudden, you have the Newbin second-round pick and the second-round pick that you traded for Burns freed up. Mm-hmm. And you have $6 million freed up from Devin Singletary. So there's all these domino effect things where we will never know how things would have played out. But if you look at it in retrospect with that lens, with the defense I just laid out to you, you could have very easily traded up with those two picks and gone after a guy like Chop Robinson, who's been crushing it in Miami. Yeah. You could have easily traded up for a guy like Jared Verse, who went, I believe, mid to late teens and is probably leading in defensive rookie of the year race right now. I forgot there was one other person, but I love Jared Verse, so I've just been following him the whole season. So there was alternate ways of getting another nice edge to put into that group. Obviously, none of them are Brian Burns, but those guys also don't make $30 million a season. And then you go into that $6 million cap hit with Singletary. What D lineman could you have signed to keep DJ Davidson off the field?
What did Ashawn get?
Ashawn got, I think it was about 8.
Was it 7 or 8?
Double check that for you guys right now.
I'm gonna look real quick. He got 3 years, $22.5 million.
Yeah, so he got 7.5.
Yeah, they're Singletary and Lock money.
And Drew Lock will fucking be discussed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to knock out the Burn stuff super quick because that is, a major headline. And unfortunately, for as much as I love him and I just love the idea of dropping an elite edge into the situation, it's been disappointing. Not himself, but with just the way things have worked out from the trade.
Absolutely. And just to be clear, I didn't bring it up because I disliked the trade. It's never a bad idea to drop an elite position player and then instantly make that group a top 10 group in the league, right? But maybe it wasn't the greatest idea for a rebuilding team that had significantly more holes than just getting your second edge, right? And it's not like Aziz hasn't been serviceable when he's been healthy. And even if you want to talk about the health, Brian Burns hasn't exactly been the healthiest player in the league since he's been in the league either. So all of these things come into play. And yeah, it's really easy to look back on moves that happened and shit on them because of the way the season's going. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But we have to talk about this stuff because of the way the season's going and because these guys could very well lose their jobs in the next 7 weeks. Yeah, that's what we're here to talk about.
So just so we have a little bit of reference, as we go on, I'm marking down like positives and I guess pros and cons, right, of each move of each offseason. So when we finish up, we'll come around, we'll circle back, and we'll kind of like give a grade, or just a general consensus of how we feel throughout the conversation. So, moving on from me and Lucas' thoughts on that, how do you view their trade in retrospect, Desmond?
It's hard because I think despite whether you thought that the Giants were going to, bounce back to 2022 form or whatever, it's hard to kind of look at that trade in no doubt in my mind, this is a good trade simply because of the fact that we're now 2-8 at the bye week or whatever. And now moving into next year, you don't know what's going to happen because you have to draft. Now we're going to probably end up drafting a rookie quarterback, or if we don't go that route, we're going to have to sign someone who knows who we're going to sign, who knows how that, that player will pan out, especially like Dan Duggan tweeted, it could be a guy like Justin Fields. And with Fields, especially, you don't know how that's going to work out. So the Giants could have yet another unsuccessful season in 2025. And now you're looking at, okay, now we're paying Burns, was it 25 mil? Is it something like that?
It is 30 a season.
Yeah, exactly. So you're paying him 30 a season. And yeah, he's a great player. And like the trade in itself, like you guys were saying, I'm not mad at that because trading for a guy that good, it's hard to be upset at that. But when you have the context of the Giants being a rebuilding team and that we could potentially have 2 down seasons, well, we already are in one currently, but could have another one next year. It's kind of hard to look at, Joe Schoen and be like, that's an objective positive because the assets, whether it be money or draft picks, could have gone elsewhere. Kind of again, like what you guys are saying.
Yeah, and that's a win now move.
Yeah.
Make no mistake about it. It kind of resonates with me that he said that thing about DJ and Hard Knocks when he said he's not ready to give up on him. I don't know if you guys can recall that moment, but when I watched it first, I was like, it's housekeeping, it's keeping a player happy, the whole nine, just kind of doing your media due diligence type thing. But trading for Brian Burns is a win now move. Replacing Xavier McKinney with a second-round pick safety, I think that's not far off from a win now move. When people bring up the positional value stuff, people are talking about. Sorry, Luca, go.
You're good. Is it win now or is it necessary replacement because you let a better player walk?
Yeah, and if you want to call it that, which sure we could do that absolutely, because I think it kind of might fit both shoes. It's not one of those tenets that Joe Schoen talked about when he got here. He talked about being able to mesh BPA and a little bit of need. And I think for the most part, he's meshed BPA with a whole lot of need.
Yeah.
As well as he has been able to, and that's bit him. And I guess this is a good segue, to go into the drafts, and we'll start just from, the infamous 2022 draft.
Oh no.
So this has kind of been discussed on here before, but this is our formal trial of Joe Schoen, so we're going to bring it all up. We're going to go through, or I guess I'll say the obvious ones right now, so we could just know and get it out of the way. Josh Ozudu, massive bust.
Yep.
Evan Neal, massive bust. He can turn it around still, but right now, massive bust.
Doesn't change the fact that we picked him 7.
Yeah.
Nope, does not at all. Cordell Flott, 3rd round pick. I would say that is a loss.
I have yellow leaning red in my notes for it.
Yep, agreed. Wandale. Some interesting conversation to be had here. And I'd say you guys for this.
I'd say with Wandale, he's a good player. Like, I don't think many people are going to doubt that he's a pretty good player.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have the context of it being a relatively high 2nd round pick and that George Pickens was still on the board, then that's where some really interesting conversations will come in. Like, I wouldn't immediately go out of the way and say this is some like home run pick, but like, I definitely don't. I don't know if I'd say it's a bad one. It's just there are definitely other directions the Giants could have gone that could have benefited the team a little more, but I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to be upset at the team getting like a pretty good player out of a 2nd round pick.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you think about who we had at the time, the receiver room wasn't necessarily in a spot where it's like, okay, we're rounding out the receiver room with our elite slot guy. At that time, Kenny Golladay was fucking terrible. We knew he wasn't going to be a wide receiver 1. Darius Slayton was a free agent during that year, so we didn't even know if we were going to bring him back. I just think I didn't hate the pick at the time. Obviously, like you said, Des, it's a lot easier to judge it in hindsight, especially considering where we're at and where he was drafted and the people who were drafted after him. I don't know. I just think it's like, if you want your wide receiver 1, just fucking take George Pickens. Wandale Robinson is not a wide receiver 1 build. He's not wide receiver 1 type. And that's not a slight to Wandale Robinson. It's just the fact that he's 5'9", 5'8" on a good day, 5'5" with an attitude.
5'3" with an attitude.
5'3" with an attitude, my bad.
5'3".
He's a $170 soaking wet and has arms shorter than and has a negative wingspan. Like, you just can't. I'm sorry, you can't do that as one of your first picks as an NFL GM for a wide receiver needy team. That's just brutal.
Yeah. I honestly didn't even think about that when I was saying that, of like, as good as I think Wandale is and like kind of can be in the right system, like you were saying, he doesn't have the build where he can ever be any team's wide receiver 1 regardless of system.
Yeah, like what if we didn't have neighbors right now? It would be Darius Slayton and it would be Wandale Robinson as your wide receiver, as your wide receiver 2. Like, no team is going to be able to succeed with that.
Yeah.
I don't care who you're surrounding them with.
And just for anybody curious, Tyrese had some technical difficulties. So that's why he hasn't been around in about 10, 15 minutes.
He's just like me for real.
Yeah, he's trying to reboot his laptop. I think this is just Daniel Jones getting fucking revenge on us for victory lapping his demise.
Yeah.
Look in my fucking camera. Tyrese is gone.
It's and he just texted us that he is coming back, so that's awesome. To add a little bit of more discussion over here, some guys that were taken after Wandale Robinson. We know the obvious: George Pickens, Jaquan Brisker, taken after Wandale Robinson, starting a very good safety for Chicago. Trey McBride, tight end for the Cardinals, who is a fucking superstar. James Cook, obviously we saw him beat the Chiefs this weekend, and he's just developed into a great runner. He's handled the workload better than I ever thought he would.
He's so ridiculous. Shout out to Schoen.
Yeah, congrats, Schoen. Nick Bonito, who is or was so good this year in his real breakout season that the Denver Broncos said, "All right, we'll trade." I believe it was Baron Browning to the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So that's fun. Cam Taylor-Britt, starting cornerback for the Bengals, who's having a little bit of a down year, but has had very good years in the past. And for as much of a criminal as he is, Sam Williams with the Cowboys, great pass rusher when he's on the field and not getting arrested.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
So in those next however many picks it is, 20 picks, players that are producing at major positions of need for this team coming into
Did
the
you
offseason.
mention Alontae Taylor yet?
Alontae Taylor, I did not. That's a good point too. And Alec Pierce, even to an extent.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Con.
You're good. Who are you going to add?
I was going to say, even, we talked about edge earlier. Ajabo was there.
Yeah, off the Achilles.
Yeah. And Mechie
came back. Yeah.
And Mechie, although coming off an injury, was the pick right after Wan'Dale.
I think he had a little more than an injury.
Oh,
wait.
No.
Is he the one that?
Yeah, he had cancer, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It was this Mechie? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even Cam Jurgens, who's now the starting center in Philly. So you look up and down, if we want to count all those guys who you said, Mechie, Ojabo, Brisker, Alontae Taylor, Cam Jurgens, George Pickens, Alec Pierce, Trey McBride, Sam Williams, Cam Taylor-Britt, James Cook, Nick Benito. That's about 11 guys from the 43rd pick to the 64th pick. That's about half of the rest of the second round, who we said just now would probably be a better pick than Wan'Dale.